Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the full contact part of our sport now. The two competitors that you have there, as you see on your screen at the beginning, is Verhill and Schmidt, both of France. As you can see now, these fighters are allowed to strike with full force with the nunchakus to virtually every part of the body except to the groin area. As you see, the heads are protected by a quite strong foam padded helmet, and they wear those very heavy protective gloves as well in order to reduce the amount of impact to the hands and to the head. The aim of the competition is to win by scoring points. They're allowed to strike their opponent up to the point of near knockout, but the referees would move in immediately to stop any full knockout from taking place. These finals are of 8 2-minute rounds. You can see some very hard strikes going into the body there. It's quite painful. If you look closely, when you get close-ups from the camera, you can actually see the welts across the backs of the two competitors where they've really struck home very hard. Very powerful blow there to the back of the one in the red helmet. The guy in the red helmet is actually constantly giving his back to his opponent, which isn't a very good idea, because he's just, as soon as he turns his back, his opponent is striking him very hard. Hard strike to the head of the red helmet there. The referee just awarding the point there for a good technical strike.
Position.
And there we have the judges giving the decision on the winner of this round.
Pascal Verhill, ceinture blanche.
As I said previously, before the artistic part of the event, the nunchaku was originally a farmer's implement. It was merely a rice flail, which was just used for threshing the grain from the rice plants, which was turned to use as a defensive and offensive weapon. Quite a long time ago, actually many hundreds of years ago, over in China during the Japanese occupation, when the Chinese were forbidden to carry any normal weapon. So they took an awful lot of their farmers' implements and so on and utilised those as weapons as and when they needed them. This particular weapon, the nunchaku, was made quite famous by the late Bruce Lee during the 70s. Those of you who've seen the films Enter the Dragon will remember his performance with the nunchakus then. Very powerful strike to the back of the guy in the dark helmet there. said earlier, you can see now the welts on the backs of these guys where the nunchaku is struck home. I can imagine they're going to be in quite considerable pain the following day after this is all over. The end of that round. So again, the referee will award the whip to the winner of that round and move on to the next.
Attention, là je crois. Voilà, pénalité pour le rouge qui a fait une double frappe sans récupération. Ce qui a donné 3 points à Dérive.
Both of these fighters seem to be concentrating most of their blows to the body. I suppose the intention is to scare their opponent just basically by the overall pain that they're inflicting on them and causing them to back off in that way. Seems that the fighter in the dark helmet seems to be having the upper hand at the moment, driving his opponent back. That's obviously going to score quite well with the judges. I think the force of that blow that he just put in there caused him to drop his weapon.
Qui donne 6 points à son adversaire, à Schmitz Raphaël, avec la ceinture rouge.
There's a tangling of the nunchakus there. So you may notice in close-up these nunchakus are coated in a foam so as to reduce the actual overall damage that they cause on impact. Seems to be protective eye shield that came out of the helmet there, the guy in the red.
Qui donne 6 points à son adversaire.
Seems that he's having a bit of problem with that helmet. The eye shield is coming out again. They're going to have to fix that definitely before they continue on, because one thing you wouldn't want it to be hitting in a naked eye. Snag their weapons again there. Nunchaku's going in now. The guy in the red helmet continuously seems to be turning his back and running away from the conflict, which isn't a good idea, because all he's going to do is just end up getting more strikes made against him while his back's turned. Good duck there. Seems to have got their nunchakus tangled together now.
Si eux ils se défoncent sur le tapis, vous pourriez un petit peu plus vous défoncer dans vos encouragements, messieurs, dames.
There is actually a point awarded to their opponent each time a fighter drops his weapon. Because basically what's happened there is he's been disarmed, and therefore in full battle it would be reasonable to consider that he'd be just about finished then. Striking after the call there from the referee, and this guy's eye shield has come out again. Looking at the red marks on the backs of these guys, it makes you wonder whether or not the shouting is in aggression or in pain. And once again, the referee will award the winner of this round. As I said earlier, the winner is determined by a point system, which is judged on the basis of the number of clean strikes which are made to the body of their opponent and to the head, and also by the number of foul points which are deducted from their scores due to such things as dropping their weapon. getting the guy in the red helmet dropping his nunchaku there, so he'll be losing points as a result of that. I think as the fight is progressing, the fighter in the blue helmet is definitely getting the upper hand as fatigue starts to take its effect. Again, the problem reoccurring with that visor from the red helmet. It surprises me really that they don't have a spare helmet that they can give him just to save this problem, because it's obviously going to continue on through the fight.
Nouvelle perte de la visière de Schmidt-Raphaël qui devra changer de casque au prochain round, certainement. Double frappe sans récupération entre les deux, 3 points à son
Good powerful exchange of blows happening here. Neither fighter wanting to give an inch at just that point there. Just missed them with a blow that would have hit straight across the front of the face of the red helmet.
André, la sixième reprise, bravo, vraiment une superbe reprise, une superbe sixième round.
As I said, each of these rounds are of 2 minutes duration with a 1 minute break between. So it's just about enough time for a guy to get his breath back and take a drink of water, basically. I don't know the problem there. I think the guy seems to be taking some kind of instruction from his corner.
Les jeunes gens sur le rebord de la salle de gym, vous disparaissez immédiatement s'il vous plaît.
Overall, the round so far, it appears that the dark helmeted fighters definitely got the upper hand, definitely scoring more strikes. It seems to be overall the stronger of the two fighters. Again, the red helmet still persistent in turning his back on his opponent during the course of the fight. It seems to me to be quite a dangerous way of doing things, really, because all you're doing is just allowing an area that you can't protect to be presented to your opponent. Once again, they're turning his back and ducking again. The end of the round.
Et on encourage ces deux combattants. Le dernier round, on va être solide.
So we're getting some powerful flurries of strikes going in now. And once again, it seems the dark helmeted fighter is definitely on top for most of the part. The guy in the red helmet seems to be doing a backward move all the time. Just disarmed him there. Well, that'll be a good scoring point for the red helmet.
Les jeunes gens, vous disparaissez du rebord de la salle de gymnastique, s'il vous plaît. Pénalité pour Schmitz pour une frappe doublée sans récupération. Je rappelle qu'après chaque frappe, on doit récupérer Nunchuku. C'est interdit de frapper 2 fois de suite.
Once again, there, in the flurry of strikes, the dark helmeted fighter dominating it. I don't think there's going to be very much argument about the overall outcome of this competition. The dark helmeted fighter, for my part, has clearly dominated his opponent.
Champion du monde de full lunch 1990, Pascal Véril avec 4 points.
As I said, Pascal Veril of France is the winner of that particular competition. Moving on now to the 65 to 75 kilo category. Once again, this is a world title fight, 8 2-minute rounds with a minute break between each.
Super barragage, réussi par notre Hollandais.
Arrachage rouge, 3 points blancs. Allez!
Deuxième super barragage. Un combat qui démarre un petit peu moins violemment que celui de tout à l'heure, mais les adversaires s'observent. On prend ici des jolis coups, des jolies techniques.
And the pace of these two fighters seems to be far slower than the previous fight. It seems to be much more of a kind of a chess game with both fighters moving around each other and picking their attacks carefully. Whereas the previous fight, it seemed to be more a case of step in and just keep banging and hope that you get more than the other guy.
Fin du premier round, on applaudit ces deux combattants. Premier round, un round de...
So we've lost the sound there just for a couple of seconds. I apologise for that. A fairly good demonstration here going on of strike and defence. You notice the way in which the Nunchaku is used as a defensive blocking implement as well as for striking, simply by extending out the both arms and stretching the Nunchaku apart. It forms quite a stiff resistance so that you're able to take the opponent's strike against it. Good strike there by the red helmet to the dark helmet. Send to round two.
Fin du deuxième round, on applaudit ces deux
So this is quite a
combattants.
contrasting fight to the previous one, which was far more strikes being thrown. As I say, it seems to be much more of a thinking man's game, really, a thinking man's fight. guy in the red helmet by raising his nunchakus above his head like that. Basically what he's appearing to be doing is he's offering his body as a striking area to his opponent in the hope that he can get a much harder strike to the head, but his opponent wasn't going to have any of that, though. He was just as experienced and knew exactly what he was doing there. Good strike and block there, very, very good block made. Seems to be having a problem with the visor on the dark helmet this time. His visor is just held into place by Velcro strips, and unfortunately the Velcro can lose its strength and hold, and the result can be the visor falling from the face, and you just simply can't go on in a competition of this sort without the visor there, because a strike to an open eye could result actually in serious damage. Unfortunately, the editing on this tape has been done in such a way so it's cutting out the actual award, the points which is being given at the end of each round, so we're not able to follow the actual points that are being given as they come. We'll have to wait till the end of the actual fight, just the full 8 rounds has been completed before we'll know exactly who's won by the points, which is quite normal anyway in most competitions. They don't announce the points anyway before the end of the actual full fight, so. So the visor coming loose again there on the dark helmet. Surprises me really that they don't have the referees wearing some sort of face protection as well, because when they're jumping in there to stop the competition, it must be quite possible for a straight strike from one of these nunchakos to catch them in the face. I'm sure sooner or later it will happen to somebody, and then they'll decide to make the rules as such that the referees also wear some form of protection. Again, we've got this problem with the visor. The red helmet is again using this tactic of holding his nunchakus above his head. I think what he's hoping to do is to draw a strike. Now that was a good dragon taking his opponent down by hooking him with the nunchakos.
Un avertissement verbal pour Charbonnier. Il a failli arracher le bras de son adversaire. Fin du round. L'arrachage a eu lieu après le signal. signal sonore et donc ne sera certainement pas comptabilisé. On applaudit ces deux combattants, merci.
Both opponents striking simultaneously there to the body. As I say, this competition is far more of a cat and mouse game between the two of them than what the previous one was, where they were really steaming in on each other and just raining blows down in the hope of scoring more points than their opponent. This one, as I say, seems to be far more of a thinking man's type of match, where they're hoping to get in with a strike and get back out again without being hit. It's a much closer fight than the last one. It's far more difficult to judge it. I couldn't actually say offhand which one is scoring more points than the other. The previous fight was far easier to see because the one guy was so much more dominant, but these are very equally matched opponents. Good spinning strike there to the body. See the welts on the back of the red helmeted fighters. Back there, very, very deep welts. He'll certainly have the scars to prove his competition tomorrow. Well, as I said earlier, for my part, it's a very closely matched competition. I haven't seen either fighter show themselves to be significantly dominant over the other. There's getting a bit of a clash of the nunchakus there, and they tangle. That's one of the problems of this sport. That it does quite frequently happen, where the strings that join the two striking arms get tangled together. Good short strike to the head of the dark helmeted fighter there.
L'arbitre fait remarquer au combattant qu'il est interdit de pousser encore en corps. On doit uniquement frapper avec le nunchaku, avec une main ou deux mains, mais la frappe doit se faire avec l'arme, non pas avec les poings ou les avant-bras.
Good strike there to the head of the dark helmet fighter.
Fin de la 6e reprise.
Well, I wouldn't give these two fighters too many points for aggression anyway. They certainly haven't been putting anything like the amount of attacking into the fight as the previous fight was, which for my part I thought was a far more exciting competition. Again, the red helmeted fighter using this technique that he seems to favour of holding his nunchakus in a high position above the eye line in the hope of drawing his opponent out to him, causing his opponent to make low-level strikes, and in turn he could strike to the head, which is a preferred striking area. As I said at the start of the competition when I was explaining briefly the rules, they are allowed to strike full contact to the head and to the point of almost knocking their opponent out. It's not like in boxing or kickboxing where you actually aim to make a full knockout. This is the reason why they have the protective helmets, to reduce the blow. As I said, the referee would step in immediately if a fighter was looking stunned or had fallen. The dark helmet being disarmed there, therefore points will be awarded to the guy in the red helmet. At the end of the round. It'll be a very quiet crowd there. You can see the audience just above in the background there. They seem to be very quiet. You can hardly tell they were there most of the time. Nunchaku Championship fight, and the competition here is certainly livened up from what it was in the earlier rounds. Referee just stopping the flow of the fight there for some reason. I didn't actually see what the reason was, but he's awarding a point to the guy in the red helmet. Some good strikes from the red helmeted fighter to the head of the guy in the dark helmet. Switching his strikes also down to the front leg there, which is a good move, a good scoring move, because it's very difficult to block anything that goes down so low. And the action seems to have slowed off a little bit again there. I would have thought that this would have been one final all-out assault by both fighters to gain the decision of the judges. They seem to have moved back into their more sort of tentative approach. Again, the referee seemingly taking points. Unfortunately, all the referee's speaking is in French, and my French isn't good enough to be able to interpret it for you, so we only have to guess just exactly what he's saying there. Again, Nunchaku's becoming tangled up. Well, that's the end of the fight, so we'll now see the decision given to whoever. I wouldn't like to be the judge in this myself, I think it's rather a very closely fought battle. Well, this Corbonnier would seem to be the winner there. Move on now to the 75 and above kilo with Brichi and Volgazang. Brichi is the French fighter and Volgazang is from the Netherlands. Quite a considerable difference in the height of these two fighters. Certainly that will be a great advantage to the taller guy. The referee there seemingly giving them some instruction on the method of striking, probably something to do with the way the rules allow them to make their strikes. I'm getting some quite flashy movements there from the shorter of the two guys there. Short stubbing strike to the side of the head of the short guy. That's the end of round one. I don't think the tall guy is really using his hit reach advantage as he ought to be. Round two now. As I said earlier, I think the tall guy with such an extra reach ought to be making more strikes, keeping his opponent at the distance which would suit him better. But he's allowing his opponent to be far more aggressive. He's just disarmed him. Well, that'll give him a nice clean point score. Again, the tall guy disarms the shorter guy. Again, this will give points. powerful strikes to the tall guy's thigh. Getting some good powerful flurries of strikes here. That's the end of round 2. I wouldn't like to say that there was very much in that between the two opponents. Once again, I rather think that the taller guy is fighting completely the wrong type of fight. He's allowing the shorter guy to get in close to him when he should be making more long distance strikes. Again, they're disarming the shorter guy. Again, that will be a nice clean point for him. Short guy striking, scoring consistently there to the leg of his opponent. And that was the Nunchuku actually snapped there in the middle. The string actually snapped. That's unusual for that to happen. It was quite strong. Again, that's another string snapping there. Very powerful strike went into the body of the shorter guy then. Well, the competition is certainly heating up a little bit here. That's the end of the round. I would definitely say that the shorter guy won that round anyway. Again, just to remind you that the judging is made on the score of clear points with good strong strikes to the body and the head. Now the shorter guy seemed to have thought that the fighting had stopped and just turned his back on his opponent and walked away, which was a very dangerous thing to do, and he paid for it as he got a very hard strike to his back. And the referee is awarding a straight point there, I think a foul point against the shorter guy for doing that. In this sort of competition, you really can't afford to drop your defence at any moment other than after the referee has told you to stop. He's coming in with some very hard attacks now, the short guy. He really is very aggressive. He does have the edge in this way over his opponent, in as much as I say as he is definitely a more aggressive fighter. Scoring consistently now, the shorter guy. Nice strike to the back of his opponent's head. I think the referee saw an illegal elbow strike there. Well, the short guy seems to have got the measure of his opponent anyway by now. He's moving in and out on him quite successfully, making some good scores. As I said from the beginning, I think that the taller guy is fighting the wrong kind of fight altogether. He ought to be keeping his opponent at more distance, using his extra reach. Nice attempt at a spinning strike there. Just getting the Nunchuku snagged together again there at the strings. It's a good attempt there, a strike straight to the top of his opponent's head. Showing some elaborate technique there, spinning his nunchaku from hand to hand. That's something which is normally kept to the artistic karters. short guy seems to be making an awful lot of attempts at head strikes. So he's just disarming his opponent there, so that'll be a point for him. As I say, he seems to be making an awful lot of attempt at head striking his opponent, when it would seem to be more logical for him to go for strikes to the body, being as it's a lot further reach to hit a guy who's so much taller than him. Having said that, he's still being quite effective, and for my part, I think he's winning the competition so far. Another disarming again there of the shorter guy. It's a good technique that the short guy is using there. He's striking across from the right to the left, and after making the strike, spinning his nunchaku over to his left hand and forming a block, so that as his opponent brings round a counter strike, he's immediately there with his block. That's a very good technique. It's the first time I've actually seen it in this competition being used so well. Referee taking some foul points away from the taller fighter and awarding to his opponent there. That's the end of the round there. Well, this has been warming up into quite an exciting competition. I think the shorter guy is definitely the more skillful, as well as the more aggressive of the two fighters. Having said that, he does seem to have a tendency to lose his weapon on a rather all too regular occasions. Again, the nunchaku is becoming snagged at the strings there. Well, the tall guy has certainly become more aggressive. I wouldn't say that he was actually making more clean strikes, but he's certainly taking the fight more towards his opponent in this round. I suppose in a hope, basically, just to simply make up more points, but it's not working for him. His opponent is actually catching him as he's coming in more often. He's fighting a fight really which is to his opponent's benefit, if anything. As we're drawing towards the end of this fight, the action is heating up quite considerably as the rounds go on. As I say, personally, I have the shorter of the two fighters ahead on my card, but it's difficult to really to go by altogether what you're seeing, because we won't know until the end, until the full conclusion of the fight, as you know exactly who the judges are going to be coming down in favour of. Again, shorter guy scoring very nicely, very consistently to the midsection of his opponent, which due to his extra height must make it far easier for him to do that. And that long slender body, it gives quite a considerable amount of area to strike to. Shorter guy regularly changing hands with his strikes. He's capable of striking very effectively from both the left and right hand. Referee awarding points there to both fighters. As I say, I'd like to be able to tell you exactly what it is that he's given and what he's saying it for, but unfortunately I don't speak sufficient French to be able to do that, so we'll just have to wait till the end and see who's the winner. As I say, I have the shorter guy on my card to have won this competition, but we have to wait on the judges for their decision. Yeah, that's the guy, Pascal Brici of France, world champion.